June 1942. The Pacific Ocean appears calm, peaceful even. But beneath that silence, one of the most important naval battles in history is about to begin. Only 6 months after Pearl Harbor, the Empire of Japan stands at the height of its power. Its navy dominates the Pacific. Its pilots are feared. Its victories seem unstoppable. But near a tiny island called Midway, everything is about to change. This is the story of the Battle of Midway, from Japan's perspective. A story of ambition, confidence, miscalculation, and devastating loss. By early 1942, Japan had achieved victory after victory. Hong Kong had fallen. Singapore had surrendered. The Philippines were collapsing. Large parts of Southeast Asia were now under Japanese control. Across the Pacific, Japan looked unstoppable. Behind much of this strategy stood one man, Admiral Yamamoto. Yamamoto understood something many Japanese leaders ignored. America was powerful. And if given enough time, the United States would eventually overwhelm Japan with industrial strength. So Yamamoto believed Japan needed one decisive victory. One battle that would crush the American fleet completely. That target was Midway Island. A small island in the Pacific, but strategically critical. If Midway could be captured, Japan would expand its defensive perimeter and threaten Hawaii itself. To the Japanese High Command, this operation was supposed to secure final dominance over the Pacific. But Yamamoto's plan had a serious problem. It was incredibly complicated. The Japanese fleet was divided into multiple groups spread across hundreds of miles of ocean. There was the main battle fleet, the carrier strike force, the invasion force, and diversionary attacks near Alaska. The idea was simple in theory. Confuse the Americans, draw their carriers into battle, then destroy them. But complexity creates weakness. Communication between the fleets became difficult. Coordination slowed down. And most importantly, Japan underestimated American intelligence. Unknown to the Japanese Navy, American codebreakers had already cracked key parts of Japan's naval code. The Americans already knew Midway was the target. Instead of sailing into a trap, they were preparing one of their own. Japan entered the battle with 4 elite aircraft carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. These were not ordinary ships. They were veterans of Pearl Harbor, symbols of Japanese naval superiority. Their pilots were among the most experienced in the world. From the Japanese perspective, victory felt almost guaranteed. The American Navy had suffered heavily at Pearl Harbor. Its carrier fleet was believed to be weak and disorganized. Many Japanese commanders expected Midway to become another easy victory. But confidence can be dangerous. Because while Japan believed America was unprepared, American carriers were already winning nearby in silence. On the morning of June 4th, 1942, Japan launched its first attack on Midway Island. Japanese aircraft bombed airfields and military installations. But soon, reports returned with troubling news. Midway was damaged, but not destroyed. Japanese commanders faced a difficult decision. Should they launch a second strike against the island?
or prepare their aircraft for a naval attack in case American carriers appeared. The order was given to rearm the planes. Bombs designed for land attack were removed. Torpedoes for naval combat were brought in. Fuel lines were opened. Ammunition was moved across the hangars. The carrier decks became dangerously crowded with fuel, bombs, and explosives. At that exact moment, Japan was at its most vulnerable. Then, suddenly, American aircraft appeared. The first wave, American torpedo bombers, was devastatingly ineffective. Many were shot down before reaching their targets. Entire squadrons were destroyed. To the Japanese, it seemed like victory was certain. But those attacks created an unexpected distraction. Japanese fighters descended to low altitude to intercept the torpedo bombers. Their defensive formation broke apart. And then, high above the clouds, another group of American planes arrived unnoticed. Dive bombers. Within minutes, the battle changed forever. Bombs crashed onto the Japanese carriers. Akagi burst into flames. Kaga erupted in explosions. Soryu became an inferno. 3 carriers were destroyed in less than an hour. For Japan, it was unimaginable.
The Imperial Japanese Navy had never experienced a disaster like this. Moments earlier, they believed they controlled the battle. Now, their greatest carriers were burning across the Pacific Ocean. Highly trained pilots were dead. Command systems collapsed into confusion. And the psychological impact was enormous. The fleet that once terrified the Pacific was suddenly fighting for survival. Only one carrier remained operational, Hiryu. Despite the chaos, Japanese forces launched a desperate counterattack. Their aircraft managed to strike the American carrier USS Yorktown. For a brief moment, hope returned. Perhaps the battle could still be saved. But that hope disappeared quickly. American scouts located Hiryu. Soon after, American dive bombers attacked. The last surviving Japanese carrier was engulfed in flames. By the end of the day, all 4 Japanese carriers were lost. The Battle of Midway became the turning point of the Pacific War. Japan lost 4 carriers, hundreds of aircraft, and many of its most experienced pilots. These losses could not be replaced easily. From Japan's perspective, Midway was more than a defeat. It marked the beginning of a slow decline. After Midway, Japan would spend the rest of the war reacting instead of advancing. The Battle of Midway teaches an important lesson. Wars are not won by strength alone. Information matters. Timing matters. Decisions matter. And sometimes, a single moment of vulnerability can change history forever. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to subscribe this channel for more historical stories and cinematic war documentaries. Because behind every battle, there is always another side of the story.